Humans are soft, disgustingly soft. That was the first report from our advanced scout Vakar upon returning from Earth reconnaissance. The assessment spread quickly through our military ranks, eliciting what I can only describe as the Tarathi equivalent of chuckles. Soft creatures rarely survived the harsh realities of interstellar existence. We Tarathi had evolved metallic exoskeletons capable of withstanding vacuum for brief periods. The Uxlinthi had caustic blood that dissolved most conventional weapons. The Morrigan possessed regenerative capabilities that bordered on the supernatural. But humans, according to our scouts, they bruised when struck, bled from minor cuts, and possessed absolutely no natural armor whatsoever. Their skin could be pierced by the simplest objects. Their bones broke under minimal pressure. Their internal organs had virtually no protection beyond a thin layer of muscle and fat. Commander Zalric's permission to speak freely. Lieutenant Kalturan approached my command station, mandibles twitching nervously. I swiveled my ocular stalks toward him. "When have you ever waited for permission, Lieutenant?" "Fair point, sir." He clicked his forelegs together in amusement. "The preliminary analysis of human physiology is complete. They are, without question, the most vulnerable sentient species we have encountered. Their bodies contain no redundant organs except primitive kidneys. They have no exoskeleton. Their musculature is remarkably inefficient, and most alarming of all, they sleep." "Sleep? As in complete unconsciousness?" I couldn't hide my disbelief. For how long? Nearly 1/3 of their planetary rotation cycle, every single day. Kalturan's voice resonated with mockery. "During this period, they are utterly defenseless. It's astonishing they weren't consumed by predators millennia ago." I absorbed this information while studying the holographic representation of a human hovering above my console. Such strange proportions. Only 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head with embarrassingly limited sensory capabilities. No defensive spines, no venomous apparatus, not even proper claws. And yet, I mused, they have developed spacefaring technology and colonized their neighboring planet and several moons. Curious. Luck, Commander. Pure evolutionary luck. Kalturan dismissed the achievement with a casual wave of his upper appendage. They faced no significant predator species during their development. Their world was abnormally hospitable. They simply filled an ecological niche without meaningful competition. Science Officer Pentara joined our conversation, her specialized respiratory apparatus humming softly. "With respect, Lieutenant, that assessment seems incomplete. Our probes have detected evidence of numerous extinction-level events in Earth's history. Asteroid impacts, volcanic winters, ice ages, pandemic diseases. Yet somehow, these creatures survived. Through technology, obviously," Kalturan retorted. "Not physical resilience." "Perhaps," I interjected, "we should observe them more closely before finalizing our invasion strategy." "Supreme Commander Drevik expects thoroughness." Pentara nodded enthusiastically. "I recommend establishing a covert observation post on their lunar colony. Their security systems are primitive by our standards. We can monitor them undetected." I considered this briefly. "Make it happen, Science Officer. Lieutenant, prepare a stealth insertion team. I want eyes on these humans within 1 planetary rotation." "As you command, sir. Though I maintain this is excessive caution for such obviously inferior beings." Kalturan saluted and departed, his derision plain in every movement. Perhaps he was right. Perhaps the humans were exactly as fragile as our initial reports suggested. But in my 300 cycles of military service, I had learned one critical lesson. Underestimating an opponent, any opponent, was the first step toward defeat. Little did I know how prophetic that concern would prove to be. The human lunar base designated Armstrong housed approximately 2,000 colonists. Our stealth team established observation posts in abandoned mining tunnels, installing microscopic surveillance devices throughout the facility. Within days, we had eyes and ears in every significant location. "Commander, you need to see this." Pentara's voice carried an unusual edge as she transferred data to my personal terminal. The footage showed human medical personnel attending to an injured colonist. The human had apparently suffered a catastrophic decompression accident, explosive depressurization causing horrific damage to its body. By all reasonable biological standards, the creature should have been dead. Yet there the human lay, connected to various primitive machines, still metabolizing, still alive. How is this possible? I whispered, genuinely perplexed. Its thoracic cavity was completely compromised. They call it life support technology, Pantara explained. They can maintain biological functions artificially for extended periods while natural healing occurs. Natural healing? From injuries of that magnitude? Yes, Commander. Their medical records indicate a 62% survival rate for such traumatic injuries when treatment is administered promptly. Pantara's voice contained unmistakable admiration. They compensate for their physical fragility through technological intervention. Quite ingenious, actually. I watched, fascinated, as the human medical team worked with practiced efficiency. Have you shown this to Lieutenant Calteran? I have. He remains unimpressed. His exact words were, "Any species can be kept technically alive by machines. This only confirms their weakness. Typical Calteran. Brilliant tactical mind, but stubborn as crystallized carbon. Continue monitoring. I want daily reports on their medical capabilities and physical limitations." Over the following weeks, our surveillance yielded increasingly contradictory data. Humans were indeed physically vulnerable, this was undeniable. But they also displayed surprising adaptability. We observed them routinely working in environments that should have been lethal. Their tolerance for temperature variations exceeded our initial assessments. Their endurance, while not remarkable by Turathi standards, surpassed expectations. Most concerning of all, they seemed to thrive on challenge. They deliberately stressed their bodies to strengthen them. Pantara reported, showing me footage of humans lifting heavy objects repeatedly in dedicated exercise chambers. They call it working out, or training. Their musculature and cardiovascular systems actually adapt and improve through controlled damage. Controlled damage? This concept was alien to our biology. Turathi tissue once formed remained largely static throughout our life cycle. Yes, Commander, they damage muscle fibers through exertion which then repair themselves stronger than before. The same principle applies to their skeletal structure and even their respiratory efficiency. Before I could process these implications, alarms blared throughout our command center. Lieutenant Calturan burst into my chamber without the customary entrance protocol. "Commander, the humans have detected anomalous energy signatures from our observation posts. They have dispatched security teams to investigate." I maintained my composure despite the surge of defensive chemicals flooding my system. "Initiate stealth protocols. Power down all non-essential systems. Activate emergency extraction plan." "Already done, sir. But there's another problem." Calteran's mandibles clicked nervously. "The lunar colony has sent communication to their planetary government reporting possible extraterrestrial contact. Their global defense networks are mobilizing." "Show me." The tactical display revealed increased activity at Earth's military installations, orbital defense platforms powering up, space vessels deploying from hidden facilities. For a supposedly fragile species, their response was impressively rapid and coordinated. It seems we have underestimated their paranoia, if not their physical capabilities. I noted dryly, "Recommendations?" Science Officer Pantara spoke first. "We should withdraw completely. We have sufficient observational data for preliminary analysis. Maintaining our presence risks escalation." Calturan predictably disagreed. "This presents an opportunity, Commander. Their defenses are activating but not yet fully operational. A swift, decisive strike now could neutralize their major defensive capabilities before they are ready." I considered both perspectives. Neither option is optimal. Withdrawal signals weakness. Immediate attack without comprehensive intelligence is foolhardy. I studied the tactical display, noting the patterns of human response. There is a third option. We reveal ourselves. Both officers stared at me in shocked silence. "Not our full capabilities," I clarified. "A controlled revelation. One vessel, diplomatic protocols. We gauge their reaction, gather intelligence directly, and maintain the strategic advantage of choosing the time and nature of contact." "That's unorthodox," Commander Pantara said carefully. "Supreme Commander Dravik authorized multiple first contact scenarios. This situation aligns with Contingency Protocol 7. I transmitted the relevant authorization codes to both their neural interfaces. Lieutenant, prepare the diplomatic vessel. Minimal weapons signature, maximum sensor capacity." science officer compile all human linguistic and cultural data for the contact team. They acknowledged their orders and departed, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the swirling holographic display of human defensive positions. Something about these creatures troubled me deeply. Their physical fragility was beyond dispute, yet they had survived challenges that should have extinguished their species. They had conquered their planet despite their limitations. They had reached beyond their world despite their vulnerability. Perhaps their strength lay elsewhere, not in their bodies, but in something less tangible. I dismissed the thought as dangerously speculative and focused on the immediate tactical situation. First contact proceeded according to standard protocols. Our diplomatic vessel approached Earth's orbital space with identification beacons active and weapons systems powered down. The humans responded with predictable caution, surrounding our ship with their primitive but surprisingly numerous defensive craft. Communication was established using their dominant planetary language, which our systems had already deciphered from intercepted transmissions. I observed the exchange from our cloaked command vessel, allowing Ambassador Trilovic to handle the delicate initial conversation. "We come in peace," Trilovic began, using the human's own cliched phrase deliberately. "We are travelers from beyond your star system, seeking knowledge and peaceful exchange." The human response was cautious but not hostile. They requested identification, origin information, and purpose. Standard procedure for any spacefaring civilization encountering unknown entities. Trifilic provided carefully sanitized responses, revealing enough to appear transparent while concealing our true capabilities and intentions. For 3 planetary rotations, the diplomatic dance continued. Trifilic requested permission to send representatives to Earth for direct cultural exchange. The humans countered by offering their orbital station as neutral territory. Acceptable compromise. "They are being remarkably reasonable," Pantera noted as we monitored the proceedings. "No religious panic, no immediate aggression. Their leadership appears rational and methodical." Lieutenant Kalturan remained unimpressed. "They are stalling. Their defensive preparations continue behind the diplomatic facade. Orbital weapons platforms are now at 87% operational capacity. Their fleet movements suggest they are establishing a defensive perimeter around their inner system." "Both expected and prudent," I replied. "We would do the same, continue monitoring but maintain our diplomatic stance. Supreme Commander Dravic wants comprehensive assessment before any military engagement." The diplomatic team returned from the orbital meeting with extensive data and recordings. Ambassador Trinieric reported directly to my command chamber. "The humans were surprisingly sophisticated, Commander. Their representatives included political, military, and scientific leaders. Their questions were incisive. I suspect they knew when I was being evasive, though they didn't press aggressively." "Your impression of their capabilities?" "Technologically approximately 70 cycles behind our current level, but advancing rapidly. Their adaptive capacity is remarkable. They incorporated new concepts into their thinking almost immediately." Trilovic's upper appendages moved in our gesture of respectful caution. "I would not underestimate them, Commander. Despite their physical limitations, their minds are formidable." I acknowledged his assessment. "Did you detect any immediate threat to our mission?" "No direct threat, but they are preparing for any eventuality, including conflict." Their diplomatic team included military strategists who studied our diplomatic vessel thoroughly. "They know it's not our only ship in the system, though I don't believe they have detected our main fleet yet." Before I could respond, emergency alerts flashed across my neural interface. "Report," I commanded, connecting to the command center. Lieutenant Kalturan's voice carried unusual tension. "Commander, we are detecting massive energy fluctuations from the human lunar colony. Some kind of catastrophic reactor failure. Their emergency protocols have activated, but containment appears to be failing." I accessed the visual feeds. The human lunar base was in chaos. Warning lights flashed. Humans rushed through corridors in obvious panic. Atmospheric breach alarms sounded throughout the facility. "Casualties?" I asked. "Unknown at present, but if their primary reactor experiences complete failure, the entire installation could be destroyed." Kalturan paused. "Should we intervene? Our technology could easily stabilize their reactor." "A complex question. Intervention would reveal capabilities we'd kept hidden. Non-intervention might result in significant human casualties, potentially destabilizing the diplomatic process." Before I could decide, Science Officer Pentara cut in urgently. Commander, the reactor signature is highly irregular. These fluctuations don't match normal containment failure patterns. Explain. The energy spikes appear deliberate, not chaotic. It's as if, she hesitated, it's as if they are purposely destabilizing their own power core. Lieutenant Calteran's voice sharpened. A trap. But how could they know we are monitoring them so closely? Unknown, I replied, mind racing through possibilities. But we must assume our surveillance has been compromised. Disengage all observation systems in the lunar colony immediately. Power down all nearby vessels. Maximum stealth protocols. Too late, the lunar colony's reactor reached critical overload. Our sensors registered an enormous energy surge, followed by a blinding explosion that consumed the entire installation. The blast propagated outward in a perfect sphere, expanding far beyond what should have been possible from a facility of that size. That's no reactor failure, Calteran stated flatly. That's a deliberate detonation, military grade. The explosion continued expanding, its energy signature now clearly revealing its artificial nature. This was a weapon disguised as a civilian facility, and its destructive radius would encompass 3 of our stealth observation vessels in 5, 4. Emergency jump, I commanded. All vessels, emergency translocation protocols. 2 of our ships disappeared into hyperspace just before the blast wave reached them. The third wasn't fast enough. The explosion engulfed it, overwhelming its defensive shields in seconds. We lost all contact. 67 Tirathi crew members. Gone. For several moments, silence dominated our command center. Then Pentara spoke softly. They knew we were watching. They sacrificed their own colony to eliminate our observation posts. 2,000 humans, Pelturan whispered, his usual bravado absent. They sacrificed 2,000 of their own kind to destroy one of our ships. I studied the sensor readings, searching for any sign of escape pods or evacuation vessels from the human colony. Nothing. They had indeed sacrificed the entire installation and all personnel. No, I said finally, that doesn't align with their behavioral patterns. The humans value individual lives far more than would justify such a trade. I enhanced the visual feed, focusing on the debris field. There's something we are missing. As if in answer to my statement, our sensors detected movement within the expanding cloud of lunar debris. Small objects, hundreds of them, moving with purpose rather than drifting randomly as explosion debris should. Magnify, I ordered. The image clarified, revealing the impossible. Humans in individual spacesuits propelling themselves away from the explosion. Some used small thruster packs. Others simply pushed off from debris. All were very much alive. How? Calturan demanded. The explosive decompression alone should have killed them instantly. Pentara was already analyzing the sensor data. Their suits. They are not standard work suits as we presumed. They are military-grade survival systems. And look, they began evacuating hours before the detonation. The life signs we detected in the colony were automated biological decoys. I watched, fascinated and disturbed, as Earth vessels emerged from concealed positions to retrieve the evacuated humans. The operation was proceeding with methodical efficiency. They had planned this meticulously. They sacrificed their outpost, but saved their people, I observed, and confirmed our presence conclusively. Commander, Pentara's voice had gone strangely flat. I'm detecting additional anomalies. The human vessels retrieving survivors, their energy signatures don't match anything in our database. New data flooded my neural interface. The human rescue ships were emitting power readings far beyond what our intelligence had indicated was within their technological capability. Not just marginally beyond, exponentially beyond. They have been concealing their true technology level, Calteran realized aloud. Everything we have observed has been deliberate misinformation. A transmission burst cut through our communications security, broadcasting on all frequencies simultaneously. The message was simple, delivered in perfect Tirathi language. Attention, identified surveillance fleet. You have violated sovereign human territory and engaged in unauthorized monitoring of civilian installations. This constitutes an act of aggression under interstellar law. You have 30 minutes to withdraw from the Sol system before we consider your presence a declaration of war. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving us in stunned silence. How do they know our language? Kalturan demanded. We never shared our linguistic database. Pantera was already analyzing the transmission. They didn't just translate our language, they replicated the precise dialect of our military caste. The cultural nuances, the honorific structures, perfect reproduction, impossible without extensive prior contact. A cold certainty settled over me. We aren't the first Turathi they have encountered. Before anyone could respond to this alarming possibility, another alert demanded attention. Our sensors detected massive energy signatures activating throughout the solar system. Weapons platforms appearing where our scans had shown empty space. Defensive arrays materializing around planets we'd thought undefended. An entire battle fleet decloaking between our position and the system's outer boundary, our escape route. We had catastrophically underestimated these fragile beings. Not just their technology, but their strategic thinking. They had observed our observation, monitored our monitoring, and now they had us surrounded. Battle stations. I ordered calmly, prepare for possible engagement, but do not, I repeat, do not fire unless fired upon. Commander, Kalturan protested, we still hold significant technological advantages. Our fleet can what, Lieutenant? Engage in battle when we have been comprehensively outmaneuvered, when we have no reliable intelligence on their actual capabilities, when we have been deceived at every turn. I focused all 4 of my ocular stalks on him. We were sent to assess, not conquer, and my assessment is now complete. I opened a channel to Supreme Commander Dravik's vessel, waiting at the edge of the system. The situation summary I transmitted was concise but comprehensive. The humans were not as they appears. Their physical fragility concealed other strengths, technological sophistication, strategic brilliance, and most concerning of all, the willingness to sacrifice their creations to preserve their kind. Dravik's response was immediate. Full withdrawal. Standard diplomatic protocols. No aggressive actions. Lieutenant Kalturan appeared ready to object, but wisely remained silent as I transmitted our response to the human ultimatum. We acknowledge your sovereign territory. Our vessels will withdraw immediately. We request diplomatic communication channels remain open for peaceful resolution. The humans didn't respond verbally. Instead, they maintained their positions, weapons charged, clearly intending to escort us from their system rather than trust our word. As our fleet began its careful withdrawal, I found myself staring at the visual feed of the human survivors being rescued from the lunar debris field. Such physically vulnerable creatures, so easily broken, so readily killed. And yet, Commander, Pantera said quietly beside me, long-range sensors are detecting something unusual among the lunar debris. Life signs. Human life signs. More survivors? I asked. No, these readings come from remains that should be deceased. Humans who were clearly exposed to vacuum, whose bodies show catastrophic trauma, equipment malfunction. Recalibrate the sensors. Already done, sir. Triple verification. Pantera's respiratory apparatus wheezed with agitation. These humans should be dead. By every biological standard we understand, they are dead, yet our sensors detect minimal but present biological activity, cellular processes continuing despite fatal damage. I studied the readings myself. Pantera was right, something impossible was happening. Humans who had suffered mortal injuries, decompression, freezing, radiation still registered faint biological activity. Is this some kind of technology? Nanomachines? Artificial life support systems? I suggest. No detectable technology signatures. This appears to be an intrinsic biological function. Pantera's voice held wonder and horror in equal measure. Commander, I believe we are witnessing a previously unknown human survival mechanism, some kind of suspended animation triggered by catastrophic trauma. As we watched, Earth vessels began recovering these deceased humans with the same care they showed the survivors, not as corpses, but as precious cargo. The implications were staggering. If humans could survive what should be certain death, even temporarily, they are not just technologically advanced, I said slowly. They are biologically exceptional in ways we never detected. Their fragility is real, but it's offset by this resilience. A new transmission from the human fleet commander interrupted my thoughts. Turathi vessels. Your withdrawal progress is satisfactory, Be advised that further unauthorized incursions into human space will be met with immediate military response. We have studied your capabilities thoroughly and have countermeasures prepared for all Turathi weapons systems and tactics. Again, the perfect military dialect. The confident tone of a commander who knows precisely the balance of power. Transmit acknowledgement, I ordered, then added, and include a formal request for diplomatic relations. As our fleet accelerated toward the jump point that would take us out of the human system, I couldn't shake the image of those dead humans, somehow clinging to life in conditions that should have rendered survival impossible. The humans had a saying we'd discovered in our cultural research: what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Perhaps we had fundamentally misunderstood its meaning. Perhaps for humans, it wasn't just a philosophical concept but a literal biological truth. They called them fragile, until they saw them crawl out of graves. The debriefing with Supreme Command lasted 3 full cycles. Every aspect of our encounter with the humans was dissected, analyzed, and reanalyzed. Our intelligence failure was acknowledged as severe but understandable given the humans' deliberate deception. They wanted us to think them weak, Dravik concluded. Every piece of information we gathered was what they intended us to see. Not entirely, I countered. Their physical vulnerability is genuine. Their biological constraints are real. What we failed to appreciate was how they have compensated for these limitations. Science Guild representatives joined our final session, eager to discuss the apparent human ability to survive catastrophic trauma. If confirmed, this characteristic would be unprecedented among known sentient species. Noted Chief Scientist Vorix, the capacity to maintain cellular viability despite systemic failure would explain much about their evolutionary success despite their obvious physical disadvantages. Supreme Commander Dravik appeared less interested in the scientific implications than the military ones. Can this ability be weaponized? Could we face armies of humans who continue fighting after sustaining lethal damage? Unknown, I admitted, but their careful recovery of the deceased suggests they value this ability and have potentially developed methods to exploit it medically, if not militarily. The strategic implications were clear enough. The Turathi Dominion would not be attempting conquest of the human territories in the foreseeable future. Their technological sophistication combined with this biological resilience made them far too dangerous to engage without overwhelming force we could not spare while maintaining our borders against the Exlanthi Collective. As the debriefing concluded, Supreme Commander Dravik pulled me aside for a private communication. The Diplomatic Guild has received a transmission from Earth. The humans are requesting formal ambassador exchange. Dravik's tone was carefully neutral. They have specifically requested you as the Turathi representative. Me? Why? They cite your restraint during the lunar base incident. Apparently your decision not to engage militarily impressed them. Dravik's ocular stalks fixed on me intently. This is highly irregular, Commander. No alien species has ever requested a specific Turathi by name before, which means they have detailed personnel information about our military structure concerning. Indeed, Dravik paused. The Strategic Council is divided. Some see this as an opportunity for peaceful relations with a potentially valuable ally. Others view it as a trap, an attempt to separate a high-ranking commander from our protection. I considered the possibilities. The humans could have attacked our fleet during withdrawal but chose not to. Their actions, while deceptive, have been defensive rather than aggressive. I believe their diplomatic overture may be genuine. Then you accept the assignment? Did I? The humans had thoroughly outmaneuvered us. They had sacrificed an entire outpost to expose our surveillance. They possessed technology far beyond our intelligence estimates. And they potentially harbored a biological resilience that defied conventional understanding. They were dangerous, unpredictable, alien in ways that went beyond mere physiological differences, yet they had not destroyed us when they clearly could have. I accept, I said finally, but with full security protocols and emergency extraction contingencies. Dravik acknowledged this with a gesture of approval. The Strategic Council anticipated your response. Your diplomatic vessel is already being prepared. You depart in 3 cycles. As I made my preparations for this unprecedented assignment, I found myself repeatedly returning to the sensor recordings from the lunar incident, specifically to the images of humans who should have been dead, yet somehow retained some spark of life. In all my military career, I had never encountered a species with such a characteristic, The philosophical implications were as profound as the strategic ones. If death itself was not absolute for these beings, what other constants might they defy? Lieutenant Calturan, naturally, had requested reassignment when learning of my diplomatic mission. With respect, Commander, voluntary proximity to humans seems unnecessarily hazardous, he had stated. I couldn't entirely disagree, yet found myself curiously eager to learn more about these contradictory creatures. Science Officer Pentara, conversely, had practically demanded inclusion in the diplomatic team. Their biology alone represents the scientific discovery of our generation, she had argued, and their technological capabilities suggest knowledge we could greatly benefit from. My diplomatic vessel was small but well-appointed, with defensive capabilities disguised as standard operational systems. The crew numbered just 27, all volunteers, all briefed extensively on human unpredictability. As we prepared for departure, a final transmission arrived from Strategic Command. New intelligence had been uncovered from deep historical archives, references to a species matching human physiological patterns encountered by a Tarathi exploration vessel over 300 cycles ago. The exploration vessel had never returned, presumed lost to cosmic phenomena, but one damaged communication pod had been recovered, containing fragmentary sensor logs and a single incomplete message from the vessel's commander. Unlike anything we have encountered, physical containment ineffective. They continue functioning despite systemic failure. They adapt to every countermeasure. They will not stop. If this message is received, do not engage. Repeat, do not engage. The message ended there. 300 cycles ago, when humans should have been primitive, pre-spaceflight beings confined to their home planet, I stared at the ancient text for a long time, feeling the weight of command pressing heavily upon my exoskeleton. Perhaps this diplomatic mission was indeed as dangerous as Calturan believed. Perhaps the humans had destroyed that exploration vessel and were now luring us into similar destruction. Or perhaps something far more complex was occurring. Perhaps the humans remembered that ancient encounter as we did, with uncertainty and fear. Only one way to find out. Prepare for departure, I ordered. Set course for the human diplomatic coordinates. As our vessel broke orbit, I found myself contemplating the strange contradiction of human existence. So fragile individually, yet so resilient as a species. So vulnerable physically, yet so adaptable strategically. The diplomatic transmission had included one curious phrase, apparently a human idiom. We have been to the grave and back. I was beginning to understand what they meant. Approaching Earth in a diplomatic vessel feels vastly different from monitoring it from stealth observation posts. There's something uniquely vulnerable about announcing your presence, declaring your intentions, and placing yourself at the mercy of potentially hostile aliens, especially aliens who had recently demonstrated both technological superiority and disturbing biological anomalies. Final approach vector accepted, reported Navigation Officer Trelanen, her voice steady despite the tension evident in her stiffened posture. Human orbital defense platforms have locked guidance systems on our vessel, but weapons remain in standby mode. Acknowledged, I replied, maintaining the outward calm expected of a commander despite my internal unease. Maintain diplomatic protocols. All defensive systems passive only. Science Officer Pentara hovered near the sensor array, literally quivering with scientific excitement. Commander, the human escort vessels are utilizing propulsion technology well beyond what their visible engine configuration should allow. The power output to mass ratio is impossible by our understanding of physics. Your definition of impossible seems increasingly irrelevant where humans are concerned, I noted dryly. Log the observations, but maintain focus on diplomatic preparations. Our vessel docked at the massive human orbital station designated Unity platform. The name struck me as optimistic, considering it bristled with weapons systems barely concealed behind decorative paneling. The docking procedure was executed with surprising precision, their automated systems interfacing with ours seamlessly despite our vastly different technological approaches. They have studied our technology thoroughly, Security Chief Vazril observed. This interface compatibility didn't happen by accident. Agreed, I said. Maintain alert status, but remember we are here as diplomats, not infiltrators. The humans have demonstrated they can detect our surveillance. Assume everything we say and do is being monitored. The airlock cycled, matching atmospheres and pressures. A difficult feat considering the radical differences between Tirathi respiratory requirements and human ones. Another indication of advanced preparation on their part. Diplomatic team only for initial contact, I ordered. Vazril, you and Pentara will accompany me. The rest of you, maintain positions and standard protocols. The airlock opened to reveal a reception chamber specifically designed to accommodate Tirathi physiology. The gravity had been adjusted to match our homeworld. The atmospheric mix, while still largely oxygen-nitrogen-based for human comfort, contained trace elements essential for Tirathi respiration. The temperature had been lowered to our preferred range. 3 humans waited beyond the airlock. 2 displayed rank insignia suggesting military status, while the third wore civilian attire. All 3 wore expressions I had learned to identify as diplomatically neutral from our cultural studies. Commander Zulrix, the central human, spoke, producing a remarkably accurate approximation of Tirathi formal greeting sounds. Welcome to Unity Platform. I am Admiral Leonid Polzin of the Earth Defense Force. With me are General Amara Jackson and Dr. Devon Wallace, our xenobiological specialist. I returned the greeting with the human custom of a shallow head bow. I appreciate your welcome, Admiral. May I present Security Chief Vazril and Science Officer Pentara. The formal introductions continued with practiced precision. The humans led us through corridors clearly designed to impress or intimidate with displays of technological sophistication, holographic interfaces, artificial gravity manipulations, materials with properties beyond standard metallurgy. Your facilities are most impressive, I noted, playing my diplomatic role while absorbing tactical information, particularly for a species that achieved spaceflight so recently. Admiral Polzin's face formed the human expression identified as a knowing smile. Recent by whose historical records, Commander? The question carried unmistakable implications. I chose not to pursue them immediately. By standard galactic developmental timelines, Admiral, those can be deceptive, can't they? The Admiral gestured toward a large conference chamber ahead. We have prepared accommodations for substantive discussions. Your biochemical needs have been anticipated as best we could manage with limited information. The conference chamber contained a mixture of human and Tirathi-adapted furniture. Refreshments appropriate for both species had been arranged on separate tables. The center of the room featured a sophisticated holographic projection system technology supposedly beyond current human capabilities. According to our intelligence assessments, once seated, formalities gave way to more direct conversation. Admiral Polzin activated the holographic system, displaying a 3-dimensional star map of Tirathi space, alongside human-controlled territories. Let's dispense with the pretense, Commander, the Admiral began. We both know this isn't first contact between our species. 312 Earth years ago, or approximately 300 Tirathi cycles, we encountered one of your exploration vessels near the Proxima Centauri system. So they knew. And they were presenting this information immediately rather than holding it as leverage. Interesting strategy. We recently discovered archival records suggesting such an encounter, I acknowledged carefully. Though our information is fragmentary at best, the vessel was lost with all hands. Not quite all, Dr. Wallace interjected. His voice was softer than the Admiral's, but carried intellectual authority. 7 Tirathi crew members survived. We have kept them in medical stasis at a secure facility on Mars. The revelation struck like a physical blow. Survivors? After 3 centuries? Impossible by any standard of Tirathi biology. Pentara vocalized, shocked. Respiratory patterns before regaining composure. That's not possible. Tirathi cellular degradation would be complete after even 50 cycles in stasis. Under normal circumstances, yes. Dr. Wallace agreed, but these weren't normal circumstances. The Tirathi vessel contained experimental temporal displacement technology. When it catastrophically failed, it created a localized time dilation field. For those 7 crew members, only a few weeks have passed subjectively. The implications were staggering. Experimental temporal technology. 300 cycles ago, such research had been strictly theoretical until recent decades. If Wallace spoke truth, these survivors represented a scientific impossibility. You claim to have kept Tirathi crew members alive for 3 centuries. I stated flatly. Why would you preserve beings you encountered during apparent hostilities? Admiral Polzin exchanged glances with General Jackson before responding. Because we recognized the encounter for what it was, a tragic misunderstanding between species with vastly different communication protocols. Your vessel interpreted our mining operations as weapons deployment. Our vessels interpreted your scanning technologies as targeting systems. The conflict was brief but devastating. General Jackson added, speaking for the first time. Her voice carried the unmistakable resonance of a career military officer. Both sides suffered losses before communication was established. By then, your vessel's experimental drive had destabilized. Dr. Wallace continued the narrative. We attempted rescue operations, managed to extract 7 crew members before the ship's temporal containment failed completely. They have been in medical stasis ever since, while we developed the technology to safely revive them without cellular collapse. I processed this information, searching for deception. Finding none obvious, I redirected. Why reveal this now? Why not during our previous diplomatic exchange? Would you have believed us? Admiral Polzin asked reasonably. Without verification? Without seeing your people alive? He had a point. Such claims, without evidence, would have been dismissed as psychological warfare. Even now, I required proof. I would like to see these survivors, I stated firmly. Of course, we anticipated this request. The Admiral manipulated the holographic controls. We can arrange transport to the Mars facility immediately. But first, there's something else you should know about that encounter 3 centuries ago. The holographic display shifted, showing medical diagrams of both Tarathi and human physiology side by side. That encounter changed both our species, Dr. Wallace explained. Your exploration vessel was carrying experimental biological samples, extremophile organisms from the Centaurus arm capable of surviving hard vacuum and radiation exposure. Kintara's respiratory apparatus wheezed with sudden recognition. Project Endurance, the Biological Enhancement Initiative. But that was discontinued due to genetic instability. Not discontinued, Dr. Wallace corrected gently. Classified. The project continued in secret for decades. Your vessel carried the most advanced samples, organisms specifically engineered to integrate with Tarathi physiology to enhance survival in extreme conditions. General Jackson picked up the narrative. During the rescue attempt, containment was breached. Both human and Tarathi rescue personnel were exposed to these engineered organisms. The effects were unexpected. The holographic display shifted again, showing cellular imagery of what appeared to be human tissue interacting with microscopic organisms of clearly non-terrestrial origin. In Tarathi physiology, the organisms caused severe rejection reactions, Dr. Wallace continued. But in humans, the display zoomed in on human cells, where the alien organisms had integrated into cellular structures. In humans, they found compatible hosts. They integrated with our mitochondria, our cells' energy production centers, creating a symbiotic relationship. What kind of relationship? I asked, already suspecting the answer. Enhanced cellular resilience, the doctor replied simply. Dramatically improved recovery from traumatic injury, extended lifespans, and most significantly, the ability to enter a form of suspended animation when faced with otherwise fatal conditions. The lunar base. The dead humans, who weren't quite dead. You are saying that human ability to survive catastrophic trauma came from Tarathi biological technology. I needed absolute clarity on this point. Yes and no, Admiral Polzin answered. The capacity was always latent in human physiology. Your organisms acted as catalysts, activating genetic expressions that were dormant. Not all humans express the trait. Approximately 27% of the population carries the active genetic markers, but those who do can survive conditions that would otherwise be absolutely fatal, at least temporarily. General Jackson added, we call them revenants, individuals who can return from clinical death under certain circumstances. With proper medical intervention, they can be fully restored. Ventura was practically vibrating with scientific fascination. This explains the readings from the lunar incident. The humans showing biological activity despite fatal trauma, they were expressing this trait. I remained more pragmatic. And you staged the lunar base incident specifically to demonstrate this capability to us? Again, yes and no. The Admiral's expression showed what humans called wry amusement. We needed to expose your surveillance operation. Demonstrating our revenant capability was a secondary objective, a way to communicate certain realities without explicit threats. The implication was clear. Humans were showing us they couldn't be easily killed even by catastrophic weapons, a powerful deterrent to potential invasion. How did you detect our surveillance? Israel asked, professional curiosity overriding diplomatic restraint. General Jackson actually laughed. Commander, we have been watching you watch us for nearly a decade. Your stealth technology is impressive, but it has consistent quantum signature leakage in the theta band spectrum. We detected your first scout ship within hours of its arrival in our system. A decade? We'd only been actively monitoring Earth for 2 cycles. Unless you have been under observation far longer than you realize. The Admiral confirmed, reading my reaction accurately. Not continuously, but regularly. We have studied Turathi expansion patterns for generations. Your eventual arrival was predicted with 92% certainty nearly 50 years ago. This revelation explained much about their preparedness, their technological advancement hidden behind primitive facades, their strategic countermeasures prepared well in advance. So the diplomatic exchange, I concluded, this entire process, has been orchestrated by your side from the beginning. Orchestrated suggests manipulation, Commander. Admiral Paulson corrected. We prefer to think of it as preparing for inevitable contact. We wanted to ensure that contact occurred on terms that would minimize the possibility of conflict, by demonstrating superior tactical position and biological resilience. By demonstrating we are not the easy conquest your military assessments suggested. General Jackson stated bluntly, we know how the Turathi Dominion operates, Commander. Assess, infiltrate, undermine, then conquer. It's been your standard procedure across 12 star systems. We simply needed to show you that such an approach would be inadvisable with humanity. I couldn't deny the accuracy of her assessment. The Dominion's expansion strategy was exactly as she described. The fact that humans knew this with such precision was deeply concerning. And now, I asked, what are your intentions toward the Turathi Dominion? That depends entirely on your intentions toward us, Admiral Paulson responded. We have no territorial ambitions beyond our current colonization efforts. We seek neither conquest nor conflict, but we will defend ourselves with absolute commitment if threatened. The holographic display shifted again, now showing trade routes between human and Turathi space, potential scientific exchange programs, cultural interaction opportunities. We believe both our species would benefit from peaceful coexistence and cooperation, the Admiral continued, particularly in light of our shared biological connection and the continued existence of your crew members in our care, who conveniently serve as both goodwill gesture and hostages, I noted. An unfortunate dual role, he acknowledged without apology. But reality often requires such complexity. The question before us is simple. Can we move beyond mutual suspicion toward mutually beneficial relations? A fair question. One I wasn't fully authorized to answer, but could certainly explore. I would like to see the survivors, I repeated, then we can discuss potential pathways forward. The journey to Mars took less than 2 Earth hours, a journey that should have required at least 12 given known propulsion technologies. Their transport vessel utilized principles our physicists had only theorized about: gravitational field manipulation, inertial dampening beyond anything in our technical capabilities. And Tara was practically delirious with scientific curiosity. The humans are at least 70 cycles ahead of our intelligence estimates in drive technology alone, she whispered as we observed the blue-green curve of Earth recede beneath us. Their energy efficiency ratios defy our current understanding of thermodynamic principles. Focus, science officer, I reminded her. We are here to verify their claims about Turathi survivors, not marvel at their technology. But, Commander, the implications will be analyzed thoroughly later, I interrupted. For now, maintain diplomatic composure. The Mars facility was built into the northern polar region, primarily underground. Its surface presence was minimal, a few environmental domes and landing pads. The true scale of the installation became apparent only after we descended into its subterranean levels. We established this facility 29 to 3 years ago, Admiral Paulson explained as we moved through security checkpoints. Initially to study and preserve your crew members, over time it evolved into our primary xenobiological research center. The security was comprehensive but unobtrusive. I noted defensive systems integrated into architectural features, automated response protocols disguised as environmental controls, and at least 3 layers of containment barriers between each major section. The humans were taking no chances with their valuable guests. After passing through a final decontamination chamber, we entered a medical ward unlike anything in Tarathi healthcare. Transparent isolation units lined the walls, each containing sophisticated life support systems calibrated to Tarathi physiology. And inside 7 of those units lay Tarathi crew members, alive. Their biological signatures registered on my neural interface, weak but unmistakably present. Pantara rushed to the nearest monitoring system, her appendages working frantically across the interface. "Impossible," she whispered. "Yet the readings are clear. These are living Tarathi. Their cellular degradation rates are minimal. Biological age consistent with temporal stasis rather than chronological progression." Dr. Wallace stepped forward. "We have maintained them in protective isolation due to the temporal discontinuity effects. Their cells exist partially out of phase with normal space-time, a side effect of the drive malfunction. We have developed protocols to gradually realign their quantum signatures with current reality, but the process is delicate." I approached the nearest unit, studying the unconscious Tarathi within. The uniform insignia identified him as Navigation Specialist Trazer of the Explorator Guild, a division that hadn't existed for over 200 cycles. "You have kept them alive all this time," I stated, my tone revealing more wonder than I intended. "Why? What possible benefit could justify such effort for enemy combatants?" Dr. Wallace smiled faintly. "They were never enemies to us, Commander. Merely visitors who arrived unexpectedly and reacted out of the same fear and confusion we did. As for benefits," he gestured around the facility, "everything you see here are advanced medical technologies, our understanding of extreme survival conditions, our revenant protocols, all derived from studying the symbiotic organisms they inadvertently brought to us. We owed them a debt we could never repay. Preserving their lives seemed the minimum ethical requirement." Admiral Pauldson added, "And we always hoped that someday relations between our species would reach a point where they could be returned to their people." A moment of profound meaning settled between us. The humans had preserved these Tarathi for 3 centuries, a commitment spanning dozens of human generations. Such long-term thinking defied our understanding of human psychology. "Can they be revived?" I asked. "We believe so," Dr. Wallace replied cautiously. "We have developed the theoretical framework for safely reintegrating their quantum signatures with current space-time, but the procedure carries risks. We wanted Tarathi medical expertise involved before attempting it." Pantara immediately volunteered. "I would gladly provide such expertise. Our understanding of Tarathi physiology would complement your temporal manipulation techniques." The conversation continued along technical lines, with Pantara and Dr. Wallace exchanging increasingly specialized terminology. I allowed this scientific discourse while considering the broader implications. These survivors represented living proof of human commitment to interspecies ethics over astonishing timescales. They had preserved Tarathi lives when it would have been far simpler to let them perish. They had developed technologies to potentially restore them when it served no immediate strategic purpose. Either humans possessed ethical frameworks far more robust than our intelligence suggested, or this elaborate preservation served some deeper strategic objective I had yet to discern. Later, after extensive medical discussions and preliminary revival protocols had been established, Admiral Pauldson invited me to a private observation deck overlooking the Martian landscape.
"Beautiful, isn't it?"
he remarked, gazing at the rust-colored plains stretching toward a distant horizon. "Harsh, unforgiving, yet filled with potential, much like our current diplomatic situation." I acknowledged his metaphor with a gesture of appreciation. The revelation of these survivors changes many calculations, Admiral, as does the biological connection between our species.
"I would hope so."
He turned from the viewport to face me directly. "Commander, I will be blunt. We know the Tarathi Dominion was assessing Earth for potential conquest. Your surveillance patterns match 12 previous expansion campaigns documented in our intelligence archives. The biological testing, the technological evaluation, the cultural analysis, all standard Tarathi precursors to annexation. No point denying the obvious. Standard protocols for any potential territory of interest," I confirmed. "Though I'm curious how humans acquired such detailed knowledge of our previous campaigns, The Admiral's expression shifted to something unreadable. Let's just say we have sources within the Dominion who share our concerns about endless expansion and the conflicts it inevitably creates. Internal informants. The security implications were disturbing. But that was a matter for another time. Your demonstration at the lunar base was effectively persuasive, I admitted. The Strategic Council has suspended any consideration of annexation operations in human space. Good. Because I assure you, Commander, humanity would resist with every resource at our disposal. And as you have seen, those resources include technologies and biological capabilities beyond your current assessments. His tone remained conversational despite the unmistakable warning. But we much prefer the alternative path. Peaceful coexistence? More than that, active cooperation. The Admiral activated a portable holographic projector, displaying a strategic map of the galaxy. The Dominion faces increasing pressure from the Excellency Collective along your coreward borders. 3 minor skirmishes in the past cycle alone. Meanwhile, we have detected Excellency probe ships in our outer system twice in the past year. This was concerning news. If the Excellency were extending their influence toward human space, they perceive us as potential conquest targets for the same reasons you initially did, Paulson continued. Our apparent physical vulnerability, our seemingly limited defensive capabilities, our relative isolation from other major powers. They would be making the same mistake we did, I noted. Yes, but with potentially catastrophic consequences for both our species. The Admiral expanded the holographic display, showing projected Excellency expansion vectors. They have developed a new form of plasma weaponry specifically designed to target carbon-based life forms. Your people and mine. The strategic picture clarified instantly. The humans weren't just seeking peace with the Tarathi, they were proposing alliance against a common threat. You are suggesting military cooperation against the Excellency Collective, I stated, testing the waters. I'm suggesting we have mutual interests in containing Excellency expansion, he replied carefully. The form such cooperation might take would require extensive discussion at higher diplomatic levels. But yes, ultimately, some form of mutual defense arrangement would seem logical. Logical indeed. The Dominion had been fighting a war of containment against Excellency expansion for 3 cycles, straining our military resources. Human technological capabilities, particularly their advanced propulsion systems and apparent quantum manipulation techniques, would provide significant tactical advantages. Your proposal has merit, I acknowledged, though approval would require significant trust-building measures from both sides, such as the return of your long-lost crew members, the Admiral smiled, or perhaps shared technology development programs, cultural exchange initiatives. There are many possibilities for building trust between species who have more in common than they initially realized. More in common. An interesting phrase considering the revelations about shared biology. The symbiotic organisms, I began, approaching a question that had been troubling me. You said they affected approximately 27% of humans. What about the others? Admiral Paulson's expression turned solemn. The integration process is genetically dependent. Some humans carry receptor configurations that allow symbiosis. Others experience rejection reactions similar to what affected your people. We have spent centuries studying these differences, developing medical interventions to reduce rejection effects, even exploring genetic modifications to increase compatibility rates. So not all humans possess this, our evenant capability. No. But enough do to change the strategic calculus of any potential conflict. And more importantly, we have learned to artificially induce similar protective states in non-compatible individuals through medical intervention. His gaze held mine steadily. The point, Commander, is that we are not the easily conquered species your initial assessments suggested. We compensate for our physical fragility through adaptation technology and now biology. The truth of this statement had been demonstrated repeatedly since our first encounter. Humans were physically vulnerable, yes. Their bodies broke easily. Their survival requirements were demanding, but they had transformed these weaknesses into strengths through ingenuity, persistence, and now, apparently, biological integration with alien organisms. I will convey your proposals to the Strategic Council, I promised. The revival of our lost crew members would certainly constitute a significant goodwill gesture, as would technological exchange in non-military sectors. Excellent. The Admiral seemed genuinely pleased. In the meantime, we have prepared comprehensive briefing materials on the excellent incursions into our space. Intelligence you may find valuable regardless of the Council's decision on broader cooperation. A gesture of trust, offering valuable intelligence before formal agreements. Either recklessly generous or shrewdly calculated to demonstrate good faith. With humans, it was increasingly difficult to distinguish between the two. The diplomatic mission extended far beyond its scheduled duration. The revival process for the Turathi survivors proved more complex than anticipated, requiring weeks of careful quantum realignment procedures. During this time, human specialists and our scientific team worked in close collaboration, sharing knowledge that would have been unimaginable months earlier. 2 of the 7 survivors were successfully revived before my scheduled departure. Navigation specialist, Treasure, and engineering technician Kolvax awakened to a profoundly disorienting reality. Their vessel lost, their mission long forgotten by history, their world transformed by 3 centuries of progress they had slept through. Their testimony provided valuable insights into that first catastrophic encounter. The exploration vessel had indeed carried experimental biological samples and temporal displacement technology. The conflict had resulted from mutual misunderstanding rather than deliberate aggression. And most importantly, they confirmed the humans had attempted rescue operations at significant risk to themselves. They knew nothing of our biology, Treasure explained during debriefing. Yet they sent personnel in primitive environmental suits to extract us from temporal distortion fields that were tearing apart the fabric of space-time. 3 of their rescue team died saving us. This matched the human account precisely, a compelling validation of their version of events. As my departure date approached, Admiral Pauldzen requested a final private meeting. We walked through a recently completed section of the Mars facility, a joint research center staffed by both human and Turathi scientists. The revival of your crew members is proceeding well, he noted. We anticipate all 7 will be fully restored within 6 months. Your medical team is welcome to remain throughout the process. Appreciated, I acknowledged. The Scientific Guild is particularly interested in the temporal displacement effects. Such research has significant implications. Indeed. The Admiral paused before a large viewport overlooking an experimental chamber where human and Turathi researchers worked side by side. I wanted to show you this before you departed. The first tangible result of our cooperation. Inside the chamber, researchers were testing what appeared to be a medical device, a cylindrical unit large enough to contain a Turathi or human body. An advanced stasis chamber, Pauldzen explained, combining our revenant biological protocols with your temporal manipulation technology, capable of sustaining life indefinitely in otherwise fatal conditions. Impressive, I admitted. Military applications are obvious, as are civilian ones. The Admiral smiled. Imagine long-duration space exploration without massive life support requirements. Emergency medical preservation for patients awaiting specialized treatment. Disaster response capabilities for mass casualty events. He was right. The technology had applications far beyond battlefield medicine. This is just the beginning, he continued. Our scientists have identified 17 major collaborative projects with immediate practical applications for both species, from propulsion technology to environmental adaptation systems to communication protocols that bridge our neurological differences. I studied the chamber thoughtfully. You have prepared for this collaboration extensively, far longer than the few months since our official contact. The Admiral nodded, making no attempt to deny it. We have been preparing for eventual contact with the Turathi for generations, Commander. Our historians documented your expansion patterns, our intelligence services monitored your borders. We knew this day would come eventually, and you determined from the beginning to avoid conflict. We determined to make conflict an unacceptable option for both sides, he clarified. Humans understand fragility, Commander. Our entire evolutionary history is defined by overcoming physical limitations through ingenuity and adaptation. He gestured toward the experimental chamber. This device represents that fundamental truth about humanity. We don't deny our vulnerabilities, we transform them into strengths. We die easily, so we developed extraordinary medical technologies. Our bodies break, so we created artificial replacements and enhancement systems. We lack natural defenses, so we built artificial ones of astonishing sophistication. And now you have incorporated alien biology to enhance your survival capabilities further, I added. Exactly. The Admiral's expression grew solemn. The universe is harsh, Commander. Species that cannot adapt, perish. The Tarathi adapted through natural evolution, developing your remarkable exoskeletons, your redundant biological systems, your resistance to radiation and vacuum. Humans adapted through technology, social cooperation, and now biological integration.
I contemplated his words, finding wisdom in them. Different evolutionary paths to the same destination, survival.
Precisely. And now, perhaps, we can walk the next section of that path together rather than in opposition. He extended his hand in the human gesture of agreement. The choice ultimately belongs to the Tarathi Dominion, but know that humanity stands ready for either path, conflict or cooperation. The implicit message was clear enough. Humans would prefer alliance, but were prepared for war if necessary, and they had demonstrated capabilities that made such a war potentially devastating for both sides. I matched his gesture, my appendage carefully grasping his fragile human hand in the ceremonial manner our cultural specialists had taught me. I believe cooperation offers the greater benefit to both our peoples, I stated formally, and I will advocate strongly for such a course upon my return. As I departed Earth system days later, I found myself reflecting on the strange irony of our initial assessment. We had dismissed humans as fatally fragile, their physical vulnerability an insurmountable evolutionary disadvantage. Yet that very fragility had driven them to develop strengths we never anticipated. Their bodies broke easily, so they created medical technologies centuries beyond our own. Their physical limitations constrained their natural abilities, so they built machines and computers to extend their reach. Their lifespans were brief, so they learned to preserve knowledge across generations with remarkable efficiency. And when exposed to alien organisms that nearly killed Tarathi test subjects, they had somehow incorporated those organisms into their own biology, developing the near-miraculous ability to survive conditions that should have been absolutely fatal. They had transformed their greatest weakness into their greatest strength. The final report I transmitted to Supreme Command concluded with an observation that would fundamentally alter Tarathi policy toward humanity for generations to come. We assessed humans as fragile, and this assessment was correct but incomplete. Their bodies break easily, their survival requirements are demanding, their physical defenses are minimal, but this fragility has forced them to develop compensatory strengths that make them formidable beyond all initial predictions. They die easily, yet they return from death's threshold through sheer biological stubbornness and medical intervention. They break easily, yet they repair themselves with technology that borders on miraculous. They are vulnerable to countless threats, yet they prepare for those threats with a thoroughness born from the constant awareness of their own mortality. In the final analysis, human fragility is precisely what makes them dangerous. It is what drives their innovation, their adaptability, and their determination to survive despite all odds. They are fragile until you see them crawl out of graves.